Welcome into the door of psychic experience. Ask and you will be given what you ask for. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives. Anyone who seeks finds. If only you will knock, the door will open, and the truth within your higher spiritual self will be revealed to you. Come now with us and go where angels come, and you can too. Welcome to Psychic Experience. Thank you for tuning in. I'm the host of the show, Reverend Doris Horvath. The show is being given by the First Spiritualist Church in the City Heights area, where angels come and so can you. This is a metaphysical spiritual talk show. We feature topics by various different persons in the area. And we are also a church that's a learning church and a healing church, and we really focus a lot on that. We have resident angels, myself, the pastor, our assistant pastor, Reverend Marcella Jones, our healing minister, Reverend Celine Clark, and also our Reiki master, Reverend Rosie Oberlies, and we have a licensed minister, Margaret Adler, who's getting ready to be ordained. And we have a very special guest today who is a herbologist. And I'm going to introduce you to him very shortly here. I would like to start though by telling you a little bit about who he is. First, his name is Keith Smith, and he's a practicing healthcare provider from Escondido, California, who for the last 30 years has worked in assisting clients who have exhausted other avenues of treatments. He specialized in autoimmune and chronic problems such as lupus, I knew I was going to say that wrong, fibromyalgia, CFS, depression, MS, and other difficult conditions. His work is featured in a chapter of the international bestseller, The Indigo Children, by Lee Carroll and Jan Tober, presenting his work with ADD and ADHD children. I did say that right. I'd like to introduce Keith, who's sitting right here next to me. And would you like to say hello to our audience before we get started here?
Hello, audience, and hello, Reverend. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, well, this is just a little one of those little miracles, because I really wanted to feature a herbologist on the show today, and I was having a lot of trouble, and by accident I found you. It's worked out so well.
With all the angels you have in your church, you think it was an accident.
I don't know, the happy accident.
Yeah.
We know accidents don't really happen. There's no such thing as coincidence. Okay. Is it okay if I ask you questions? That's one way our audience can get to know what you do.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Keith, you're one of the authors featured in the Indigo Children by Lee Carroll. Do you work a great deal with these children?
It's kind of my passion to work with children. I was a very sick child, and of course, all we had most of the time in those days were the doctors, and all doctors ever did was give me antibiotics and shots. And you know, I had terrible sinus and colds and flu all the time, and so I was a very sickly child. And you know, as I became an herbalist and realized I was an O blood type and we're allergic to milk products, and I was raised on milk products, and such a simple thing to stop milk and wheat and not have sinus anymore. So you might say I personally, because of the experience I had growing up with doctors giving me shots saying it would never hurt, and it always did.
Yes.
I kind of have a passion for helping children. Plus, these indigos are coming in with such abilities and such sensitivity. And you know, the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors and you know, want to drug these kids and take them out of their abilities. And this is not where they belong. So I kind of have a passion for helping these kids.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, can you give us a few examples of what you've done in working with these special
Well, you know,
children?
I just talked to was doing a checkup today on an autistic child that when he first came to me, for example, to give him a haircut was a real experience because he would just go insane, bite the person trying to give him a haircut, and just go into a total terror. You know, after 3 or 4 months on the herbs that I put him on, he went in, and his mother said he was going to give him a headache. He went and got in a chair and sat down and was totally quiet and just behaved perfectly.
Amazing.
And a little girl came to me with an offshoot of muscular dystrophy, and she couldn't walk, feed herself, or dress herself. They said she would never grow again. She was dwarfed, and she weighed, something like 30 pounds at 11 years old.
Oh,
she was a little stick figure who spent all her time on her mother's hip. And after I had treated her for a year, she could walk, dress herself, feed herself. She grew 5 inches that year, and she gained 15 pounds, which is a 50% weight gain.
Oh, that
It was like
great.
watching a slow motion miracle.
Oh, my.
And if you can understand, to be able to participate in an experience like that that one patient was worth my whole 30 years of practice. And I get them, I get them by the busload like that. So it's been a real privilege to help children. So those are some of the examples. I work a lot with attention deficit and hyperactive disorders. One of the conditions I treat, which you'll probably ask me about, is really the underlying cause of both attention deficit and attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I look at the eyes. If they're in front of me, I can look at them on the phone if they're not. But people who have little spots in their eyes are called jewels, and as adults, they're prone to anxiety. As children, they're prone to hyperactivity. People that have a lot of openings in their eyes are called flowers, and they're prone to that spaciness, I can't get it together, attention deficit. And as adults, they're prone to depression. So these conditions are caused by something I found the underlying cause on, and we can fix these kids. We don't have to drug them.
That's fantastic. Well, can you explain chronic reversed polarity, or what switched is?
Yeah, I would love to. Switched is what I started calling it, and it's something that's kind of known out there. The body is an electrical system, and if I touch you, you feel that as an electrical signal,
right.
And the heartbeat is electrical. We don't think of it oftentimes, but the medulla sends a signal and makes the heartbeat. We don't have to think about it, or, my gosh, in the middle of orgasm or something, we'd forget to make our heart beat and be in trouble. So it's electrical.
Heart attack and die.
Yeah, and so we don't think of this, but you're listening to me on an electrical sound system. My voice vibrates, your eardrum goes up the stirrup, the anvil, the auditory nerve comes into a computer section of the brain, and if you've got the tape for English in your computer, we're speaking language, but it's electrical. And it's the nature of electricity as it flows that it creates around it an electromagnetic field based on the direction of the flow of the electricity. And those electromagnetic fields have north and south poles, or what we refer to as polarity. And unbeknownst to most people, for example, let's just imagine instead of a pen that this was a flashlight, and this was the North Pole. In magnetics, if you stress a magnet, like bang on it with a hammer or pound it on the floor, under stress, a magnet will reverse its north and south poles.
Really?
A human, which is also an electromagnetic being, under certain states of stress, will also reverse its north and south poles. And this creates in the body the equivalent of a short. And that short, in a sense, if you could think of your head as a light bulb, and imagine what it would feel like to be walking around on the planet with your light bulb on dim with the short. And this is actually, in truth, what causes chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. And you have to put this into a common sense thing, but imagine for a moment, they've never been able to find what causes autoimmune disease. And why does the immune system that was designed by God to preserve life suddenly start to destroy it? Well, imagine for a moment if you just walked out to your car, popped your hood, took your battery cables off, and reversed them. Put your positive on your negative and your negative on your positive, got back in your car and turned on your ignition. Do you know what would happen to your wiring?
I know it happened to my car. Somebody did that, and
All
it
right.
was pretty awful.
It fries the wiring.
Yes, it does.
And you know, your wiring isn't made to be self-healing. God designed your body to be self-healing. So once you reverse like this, the body is in a sense destroying you through your wiring, but because you are made to be self-healing, the body starts taking all its energy into fighting that system, and it fights back, but it pulls a lot of energy in doing it, and along with the short dimming you, we have the disease called chronic fatigue syndrome. That's one of the first symptoms that shows up, fatigue. You know, a medical profession always looking for a germ that they can sell drugs for writes all these books about being caused by the Epstein-Barr virus. It was a different virus for mono. So it's just that whatever virus is prevalent in the body, they're looking for a germ so they can sell an antibiotic and stuff like that and treat it this way. The true cause of it is an electrical short in the body and the body being on dim. When you're on dim, you have no energy. When you're, and think of the other symptoms that are so common with this, that it's also depression. Could you imagine walking around in life on dim and with no energy? It's depressing.
Well,
so
is
it
this
causes depression.
Yeah, this what you would call one of the major symptoms?
Yes. Yeah, depression, fatigue, sleep disorder. For example, when you're sleeping, the deepest levels of sleep are the delta and theta brain states. And if you look at them on an oscilloscope, they're very smooth brain states. When you're reversed like this and you have a short in your system, you have the equivalent of static in your brain waves. When you have static in your brain waves, you can't go into the delta theta brain states, so you really don't go into the deep, satisfying levels of sleep.
Well, that's why some people can't go to sleep then.
And many of the symptoms, oddly enough, we look at things like multiple sclerosis and lupus and things like that as a curse. And you know, many of the things we have on the earth that we don't understand are actually blessings and not a curse. And you know that in your church work. And oddly enough, the fibromyalgia and many of these diseases most oftenly happen to what I call people that are jewel with little spots in their eyes, that are very powerful, forceful people who are the type A stress personalities. And what happens when they get stressed and they get reversed and they get on the low energy, there is a condition that the normal electrical charge of a cell is 62 to 68 hertz. And imagine that this down here is 42 hertz. If the body drops below 42 hertz in its cellular electrical charge, you have no defense for the viruses that can invade the cell and cause cancer and other disease. If you spend too much time below 42 hertz, you're going to die from something. So the body, in its self-healing mechanisms, starts trying to stop you from overdoing it and doing too much and being the type A stress personality. So it creates a lot of these diseases in order to stop you. I mean, if you have fibromyalgia and you ache and hurt all over, you're not going to come home from work and weed the garden and clean the house. If you're aching and pain, you're going to go sit down and play with the clicker. Well, the nice thing about that is that may enable the body to come from 44 hertz back up to 48 where it isn't in danger anymore, where if you went out and weeded the garden and dropped your energy even lower, you'd be down in a disease state that's life-threatening. So fibromyalgia, the reason they have so much curing it and the reason they don't like to even admit it exists, which is what they used to do with when I first started, when we treated Candida all the time, they used to laugh at us and say that doesn't exist because they were causing it with their antibiotics. They didn't want to admit it. But once they invented some drugs for it, you know, it was fine. Now it's a disease. But in this particular case, you know, fixing fibromyalgia, it is actually a symptom the body is deliberately creating to force the person to slow down. So if you fix it, you're actually trying to cure one of the body's natural defense mechanisms, and the body doesn't really want it cured, so it's very difficult.
What other kinds of diseases does it cause?
Well, all your autoimmune, I mean, these are the most serious diseases, things like MS, lupus, Lou Gehrig's, Parkinson's, Sjogren's syndrome, again, depression, anxiety. I believe that cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy are caused by children who get reversed in utero. There's a very high percentage of cerebral palsy babies that were born to battered women. So the child, in the uterus, either the mother is reversed already, or the child gets reversed from the mother, or gets reversed from some kind of trauma during the development of the nervous system. I have had some amazing results with muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy, getting them unreversed.
That's good to hear. Well, how many patients have you treated for these type of conditions?
I've been treating this for about 29 years, and I figured out once we went back and did some counting, I've probably treated 35,000 people for this condition. And it's an extremely successful treatment. I've been asked to come to Australia to teach it to the practitioners in Australia, not by the medical profession, but the naturopathic
I wouldn't think so.
health organizations. And I'm going to Russia Monday to begin teaching it there. I'm a dowser, like I believe you are.
Yes.
And in dowsing the Soviet Union's population, I find that in America, I honestly believe that 55% of the population is reversed, minimum. And in the Soviet Union, it's 79%. I mean, they've had the Tsar, they've had Stalin, they've had all these conditions, and it's really, they need a light shine. They need to know that these things can be fixed. And I've treated a few Russian people now that came to Hawaii and stuff to a conference I was speaking at, and they want to bring me over there, and I'm going to do some patients and create an interest, and then I want to go there and teach this treatment to naturopaths, because my angels are telling me it's time for me to give this away. Because if I teach the world how to do this has some interesting side effects to this treatment, which is, you may want to ask me about, because some of the side effects are really beautiful, especially for a metaphysical audience.
Well, before I ask that, are there other practitioners who treat polarity like you do?
Well, polarity is known. When I first discovered this, I had been taught in Touch for Health and in applied kinesiology about what we call the switch circuit. And so it's a well-known thing, but it was taught that it was no big deal and it wasn't anything important. But that's like the sacred cows of all professions. Sometimes the practitioners that really make a difference are the ones that got out of the box, like the poor man that was persecuted to death practically for asking doctors to wash their hands in hospitals,
Oh, yes.
and stuff. It's the people that change, and I don't know, I can't stand not to fix somebody. So I had somebody coming to me that was ready to commit suicide and spent like $500,000 on his health, and nobody could fix him, and he had all the symptoms of chronic fatigue but no Epstein-Barr virus. And I started experimenting, and I remembered the reverse polarity things that were taught, and I just explored it a little further, and I found that there was another level, because you can thump your thymus, and you can do cross crawls, and there are as many ways to reverse polarity as there are types of practitioners. There's certain ways you can adjust the neck, you can rub these bones behind the ear. All of that will temporarily reverse polarity while you're in the doctor's office. But there's another level of it that goes to the DNA. And it's chronic reverse polarity, which is why I gave it that title. And it really is the underlying trigger for almost all of our serious incurable diseases.
Well, are there any side effects from treating a polarity?
Well, sometimes I will make people a little tireder when I first start treating them, because one of the things I do is I use an herb that relaxes and protects the nervous system, because this is an electrical disorder. So sometimes I warn people that sometime in the first month I might make you tireder for a week. But the DNA is like the coil of your telephone wire, and it tangles and untangles. And when you are reversed, it's tangled, which is a state where the RNA cannot access the body's healing codes. So that's why this causes so many incurable diseases. My way to get the DNA to come out of its tangle is by relaxing and healing the nervous system for a while, but I may make you a little tireder at first. That's the only negative. There is a very positive side effect of this treatment, which especially I think a metaphysical audience would love to hear about.
What is that?
If you can imagine this, when you're reversed, you're on dim. And when you're getting unreversed, it brightens you up. And at one time, my angels came to me and said, I had just read a book by David Hawkins called Power versus Force, where he has scientists that fell in love with applied kinesiology, and he developed a scale of 0 to 1,000, and I'd read this, and they said, Keith, we want you to start testing people. And I knew I brightened him up, but I had never measured it. But all of a sudden, I started measuring it, and I found that my treatment makes people go up about 30 points a month on that scale.
Is that what you call the enlightenment scale?
Yeah, I didn't like some of Hawkins' statistics, so I kind of did my own research with it, and I found that, he said that you could only go up 5 points in a spiritually advancing lifetime, but he wrote his book in '87 when the harmonic convergence started, and we're in a whole different energy system now than we were then. And I find people are going up 30 points a month, and I've done everything I can to validate that. And then, so I'm getting all these people. Then my guide said to me, we want you to get 2,000 people vibrating above 500, and I think I'm within about 50 of that. So, and then what happened next is, as I started working on that, I got this information. My guide came to me and told me, sent me another book, and maybe you know the book. It's by Virginia Essene. She talks to Jesus, and he wrote a chapter in one of her books called The Alchemy of Ascension. And in this chapter, he talks about how there's a white powdered gold and several other things that reverse the aging process and prepare you for the 12 strands of DNA.
Oh.
So I asked, I did a little asking, and Archangel Raphael came in and gave me some instructions that when I get people to the vibration of 555 with my treatment, that they could start the first of these minerals, which are called the monatomic minerals. And I tell you, they read like a science fiction novel. They have an ability, I believe, they don't combine like other minerals do, and they form what they call Cooper pairs. They don't combine and lose electrons or gain electrons. They form Cooper pairs and go into super speed. They become photons.
Oh, really?
And they make your brain a superconductor, and I think they will reverse the aging process. And so I'm not only helping people with these diseases, but I'm getting them prepared perhaps for this change that's coming and the activation of the 12 strands of DNA.
Okay, that's what you're talking about.
That's what I really love about my work, and that's why I wanted to come talk to a metaphysical audience, because I knew they would understand it.
Okay.
I know that's a lot, but I wanted to get all that out.
I think it's fantastic. I want to know about this book you're talking about so I can go get it. But
I found a book also that was published in Switzerland, written in Switzerland, published in England, called Tuning the Diamonds. It's not available here yet.
Tuning the Diamonds?
Tuning the Diamonds, but it has all this information on these monatomic minerals, and they are, I think, going to be a fairly awesome experience. I'm doing it on me and about 100 other people right now, and I'm looking for more to help, because I think it's a very special time we're in.
You talked about a woman who had a book, and you said something about that you learned something about the enlightenment scale through this book. Do you remember where we were when you talked about a book where you had learned something about the 12 strands of the DNA?
Yeah, the book was called New Teachings for an Awakening Humanity by Virginia Essene.
Virginia Essene?
Essene.
She's got a great last name for that.
Very beautiful lady. She's a 77-year-old beautiful spiritual lady who, she's Catholic, would probably be a saint. She talks to Jesus, and she's just has written some powerful information.
New Teachings
for an Awakening Humanity by Virginia Essene. It's an old book. It's been around for a long time. But you know how the angels work. When they want you to have something, they arrange for you to get it at the perfect time for you.
Yeah, that's very right. They'll lead you right to the book. Okay. Do you have one really amazing story you'd like to share with us for about 2 minutes?
Again, working with children, I just had a young girl, 14 years old, brought to me last year from Ramona. Mm-hmm. And she had a disease called polymyositis. And it's an autoimmune disease of the nervous system. She was on prednisone and getting fat cheeks and fat, at 14, losing her beauty, and she was on very heavy pain medicine. And this is a disease that They said she would be in a wheelchair in 6 months, and they said she would probably be dead by the time she was 20. It's a normally fatal disease, much like Lou Gehrig's.
God, how depressing.
And yeah, I can imagine being the mother of that child. In 3.5 months, I had her off all the medicine with this treatment for the reverse polarity, and in 6 months, confirmed by a blood test, the disease was gone. And
That's
if I can
great.
I told this story at a convention recently I was speaking at, and a lady got up and told the story of her father, who was a famous medical doctor, and said that this disease had never been cured. He went all over and took 10 years before he died, and died from this disease. And to be able to reverse a disease like that and cause that family to have that experience, it was great.
That's fantastic. Well, you're a very special man, and I think the angels want you to keep doing what you're doing. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I want to thank our crew. And thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yes, thank you for asking.
It's been very, very interesting what you have to say. I'm very impressed. Now we're going to close our show now. And remember the First Spiritualist Church, where angels come, and so can you. Any Sunday. We're always there waiting to see you. God bless. Thank you for watching.